Hey folks, this is JR with DIY Prepper. Welcome to the channel. One big trap that people fall into when it comes to prepping is thinking that you have to spend a ton of money all at once. They think that if you can't go out and buy an entire pallet of freeze-dried food buckets, then there's no point in even trying. But the truth is that very few people can actually go out and do stuff like that, and it's usually not the best idea anyway. In the case of the big food buckets, they really aren't the healthiest or tastiest option out there, and going out and buying a ton of stuff all at once can kind of make you stick out. Most real preppers that have big stockpiles of food and other supplies have built those slowly and consistently over time. So today we're going to talk about some dirt cheap stockpile items. These are things that you can go out and pick up for like $5 or $10, and if you do that enough, you should end up with a pretty good stash. When it comes to food, canned goods are still an economical way to set food aside. You can find fruits, vegetables, and meats for around $1 or $2 per can, but what makes them so valuable is that they're very easy to prepare. Some things like canned fruits will taste fine straight out of the can, while canned vegetables, meats, soups, and chili only need to be heated up, and they don't even really have to be heated up. It just makes them taste a little bit better and improves the texture in some cases. Like, I wouldn't want to eat a can of Wolf brand chili at room temperature, but even when you do heat those up, they're still going to require far less fuel than other prepper go-tos like dried beans and rice, and how much fuel you're going to be using is definitely something that you want to keep in mind, because that's going to affect the overall cost of your meals. The cost of propane, particularly the 1 pound bottles, has increased dramatically over the past several years. If you're depending on propane, it's going to be far more economical to just keep it in 20-pound or larger cylinders, and you're also going to need to consider where you're going to store that fuel. Some people may have a housing situation where you can't store a ton of fuel at one time. Now, you can always get something like a rocket stove that uses natural materials to cook with, but most people are still going to want to have some sort of camp stove to use, at least during short-term emergencies. Then there's other factors to consider, like, are you going to need water to prepare your food? For most canned goods, you're not going to need to add water, although condensed soups are an exception to that. Dried beans and rice, along with freeze-dried meals on the other hand, will require water. So that means that you're going to have to store more water at your home and also possibly invest in some sort of rainwater harvesting system just to make sure that you have enough water to cover all the needs that you're going to have. Salt and sugar are also some inexpensive food items, and they're good since they never expire. You could probably get enough of each to last you a year in just one trip to the grocery store, but you can also get small amounts of those in condiment packets that you get when you order takeout from a restaurant. Depending on where you go, you could also get other things like pepper, ketchup, mustard, or hot sauce. And these smaller portions are good to keep in things like your bug out bag. If you want to catch your own food, then picking up some fishing gear is probably the most cost-effective way to do that. While rods and reels may be expensive, you can pick up other things like fishing line, lead sinkers, lures, and hooks for not a whole lot of money. If you want to grow your own food, you can still pick up heirloom seed packets for a few dollars each. And for food preservation, canning jars and lids are always good to have around. But one thing that you don't want to cheap out on is water filtration, and that's true in an emergency and everyday life. My family and I use our Cove Pure reverse osmosis filter daily to make sure that our drinking water is as clean as possible, and I'd like to thank Cove Pure for sponsoring us today. Sink water is one of the most unhealthy things that people consume, and if you want to see just how bad the water is where you live, all you need to do is go to the ewg.org website. From there, you can enter your zip code, and it'll let you see how your water supply stacks up against their guidelines for drinking water quality. As you can see here, the report for my area doesn't look good. Just right on top, you can see that there's 592 times the amount of arsenic in the water than what they recommend. Even though those numbers are within the legal threshold, I'm still not all that happy about it, and that's why I always filter my water with Cove Pure. The system sits right on your countertop and is always ready to use. You just plug it in and it filters your water. The Cove Pure's Clear Wave reverse osmosis technology goes through 4 layers of filtration to completely purify your water, and they're third-party lab certified to remove up to 99.9% of harmful contaminants. You can also use them with solar power stations to power water water during blackouts. If you want to pick one up for your family, use the URL covepure.com/DIY-prepper and you can get $200 off. I'll also be sure to include that link in the description below. Another inexpensive item that you could stockpile are paper plates and bowls along with plasticware. While I wouldn't store enough of those to last months or years necessarily, they are nice to have around for short-term situations where you lose water. They're also good to have around during times where you're not able to keep up with dishes like you normally would, like maybe there's an illness making its way around your family, or you're just a little bit busier than usual. Then there's other items you should stockpile since they can help your water storage last longer. Wet wipes and moist towelettes work well to keep you clean when you can't take a real bath or shower, and small packages like this are good to keep in bug-out bags or other kits. Sanitizing wipes, on the other hand, are good to use on surfaces like countertops and door handles. Hand sanitizer can help keep your hands clean without having to fully wash them, although it should be noted that actually washing your hands with soap and water is going to get them a lot cleaner than just using hand sanitizer. But that being said, I do like to keep small bottles in places like my get home bag or my bug out bag, and then keep larger bottles at home. And hygiene's going to be a big concern during emergencies and disasters. These kinds of situations tend to be dirty by their nature, and they'll only become worse when the water stops running. The most obvious hygiene-related items are different kinds of soap, and while people will stockpile hand soap, don't forget to store plenty of dish soap as well. Dawn, for example, is an excellent general-purpose soap, and it can be used for hand washing. While some people who have certain skin conditions like eczema may want to avoid doing that, it should be fine for most people. And remember, Dawn's been used to do things like clean up birds after oil spills, so it's relatively safe to use. Lava soap's also good to have around. It has pumice in it and does an excellent job removing oil and other hard-to-remove stuff from your skin. But one area that a lot of people overlook is dental hygiene. Stockpiling things like toothbrushes, toothpaste, and floss can help prevent things like cavities, and those could cause big problems in a longer-term disaster. Baking soda can be used as toothpaste in a pinch, and it also has other survival uses like helping treat bug bites. If you use mouthwash, pick up a few larger bottles now and rotate through them, being sure to purchase a new one whenever one runs out. But even if you're careful and exercise good hygiene, you're still probably going to have to deal with illnesses and injuries at some point. But there are several inexpensive items that you can stockpile to help deal with those. Many over-the-counter medications are still relatively cheap. You can get common pain relievers and fever reducers for just a couple of dollars per bottle if you buy the generic versions. While I usually prefer to buy in bulk for most things, medications are something I like to purchase in smaller denominations. It makes them easier to use and rotate through, so I always have something fresh. And also, having a couple of small bottles for me is better than having one big one, because say you have something like allergy medicine. I can have some in my backpack, and then I can also have some in my medicine cabinet, so I have it with me pretty much wherever I need it. Then antiseptics and antibiotic ointments are pretty cheap as well. But in all honesty, stockpiling all this stuff isn't going to do you any good if you haven't thought about how you would actually respond to a disaster. My 72-hour survival plan goes through the most essential gear and supplies, what to do during the opening stages of an emergency, and also how to get your family all on the same page. You can still get it for its introductory price for the next couple of days, and you can do that using the link in the description below. Now, when it comes to antiseptics, I like to keep isopropyl alcohol, hydrogen peroxide, and povidone iodine in my home because they all really do have their own uses. Cotton balls and Q-tips can be used to apply antiseptics or ointments to small wounds, and then they also have other uses. I've shown Vaseline and cotton ball fire starters several times on this channel, and Q-tips can be used to clean small crevices on different kinds of equipment. And Vaseline itself is another inexpensive item to have around. In addition to helping start fires, it can also be used to treat dry or chapped skin, and it can be used to lubricate different kinds of equipment. You can also pick up chapstick, which has many of the same uses as Vaseline, and when you run out of it, you can even use the tube that it comes in to hold small items. You also want to have a good assortment of different kinds of bandages. While most people do a good job remembering to have things like Band-Aids, don't forget to store some larger bandages and gauze pads as well. Even something as simple as a skin knee could be a little bit too big for something like a band-aid to cover up. But one medical related item that a lot of people don't think of is distilled water. This can be used in things like humidifiers if you or a loved one develop a cough or other respiratory issues. Another thing you should stockpile is different kinds of clothing, and you definitely want to have some spare socks and underwear on hand. While you may be able to get away with, say, wearing the same pair of jeans a couple of days in a row, if you try to do that with socks and underwear, you're probably gonna have some issues pretty quickly. Gloves are another inexpensive clothing related item you should stockpile for cold weather. These military wool glove liners have worked pretty well for me, and they've held up for like 20 years. Work gloves are always good to have because you'll want to protect your hands as much as possible while working. Then also be sure to stockpile things like nitrile gloves for cleaning or medical tasks, along with some thicker kitchen style gloves if you need something a little more puncture resistant. Another cheap item that you should stockpile is fire starters. You can find disposable lighters for a couple of dollars each, but having longer grill style lighters for home use is good as well. Ferro rods can be picked up for around $8 on the low end and go up in price from there. If you shop locally, you should be able to pick up some stormproof matches for around $3 or $4 a box. Candles are another good thing to pick up, and for the best deals, check places like thrift stores, dollar stores, flea markets, and like the clearance section at places like Walmart. Next thing you should stockpile is tools, and these really don't have to cost a whole lot of money. I, for example, have a mixture of some good tools and cheapies. My good tools stay in the house or shop, and they're what I use most often. The cheaper ones serve as backups that I keep in places like vehicles or other areas. For example, this is a kit that I used to keep in my office to deal with small jobs while I was at work. These aren't the best tools in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but they can handle small things okay. And if they were to be misplaced or just walk off on their own, then I wouldn't be out that much money. You can also pick up cheap tools at places like flea markets and garage sales, or also at stores like Harbor Freight. Then also be sure to stockpile some fasteners like nails and screws to help you make any needed repairs. But if you don't have a way to keep a power drill running long term, I would suggest though to just go ahead and focus more on nails and get yourself a good hammer to go with them. Another kind of cheapie that you should stockpile is lights. These could be small flashlights, LED lanterns, or even headlamps. I've lost track of how many of the stinking Harbor Freight blue lights that I have, and they're cheap enough that you could probably put one in every room of your house. They also work well in car or office kits, and if you have kids, especially small ones, then giving them their own light can make a big difference. For example, my wife picked up this small lantern for our son before a camp out, and he loved running around with it. Giving a kid, especially a little one, something new that's theirs can make a possibly scary situation a lot easier on them. Then sewing supplies are another inexpensive item that every prepper should stockpile. Even a small collection of things like thread, pins, and sewing needles could last you a while and allow you to make a lot of repairs. For fabric, you could check places like thrift stores, maybe pick up some old cheap t-shirts or jeans that you can make patches for repairing your own stuff. And I personally like to keep some of my old clothes on hand specifically for that purpose. Then there's other repair maintenance related items that you should keep on hand. Duct tape and zip ties are always recommended since they both have a wide range of uses. Also think of anything else that you need to keep equipment running long term. That could be things like cleaning patches, oil or solvent. Steel wool is very useful for removing rust from tools and other equipment, and it also has the added benefit of working as a fire starter. And it can also be used to help prevent mice or other rodents from entering your home. Then once you have the basics taken care of, you may want to pick up some secondary survival gear to help you fill out additional kits. These could be things that you keep in places like your car or set up for your kids. I did a video a while back showing how to turn cheap second-tier survival gear into its own kit, and if you want me to make an updated version of that, then be sure to let me know in the comments below. But then there's also some disposable items that you may want to stockpile as well. Now, you don't want to become a hoarder with all this, but having at least a few of these on hand could be helpful in some situations. For example, you may want to save some of your laundry detergent containers. We use detergent packets in our house, and the tubs that they come in work very well for holding small items like tea light candles. Liquid detergent jugs, especially those with spigots built into them, can work well for holding water that you intend to use for cleaning tasks. Then I also like to save a little bit of newspaper. Now, I know that most people aren't getting physical newspapers these days, but there's still like a lot of coupon mailers and junk mail ads that are made out of that same material, and since it's flammable, it works well if you want to like maybe start charcoal or a rocket stove. And during cold weather, if the power goes out, you can ball it up and stuff it in something like a jacket, and it'll give you a little more insulation. Another disposable item that you may want to hold on to are jars. These have been used for years to hold small things like nails and screws, but you can also use them to hold small parts or soak small parts in something like a solvent or other cleaning solution. It's also a good idea to hold on to some twisty ties. These, of course, can be used to help make clumps of wires a lot more manageable, but they can also work well to hold other small items together like keys. Of course, these aren't the only items that you should be stockpiling. There's a lot more, so if you want to see some of those, then be sure to check out this video, or if you want to see the best prepper and survival items at Harbor Freight, then check this one out. Thank y'all for stopping by. Y'all have a good one.